Hi, welcome to our SSBCI overview of our request for interest for venture capital and equity capital programming from the Economic Development Department for New Mexico. And let's see, I'm going to try to share my camera. My name is Joanna Nelson, and again, thank you so much for joining us. I am joined today by our Deputy Cabinet Secretary, John Clark, and we've also got Eric Cromwell on as well, who is representing the U.S. Treasury Department's SSBCI contract support. And we're going to just go ahead and get started and hopefully provide you an overview of this RFI that we have out currently and answer your questions. We did get the questions that were submitted when you registered, so we'll do our best to answer those. And as well, if you have questions, please go ahead and submit those into our chat box, or I'm sorry, in the questions box, and we will address those as we're going and then at the end of the session. Also, we are going to record this session, and if you are not able to stay for the entirety, we will send the recording out to all registrants, and we also will put that on our YouTube channel so you can go back and check it out. We'll also send these slides as well. So thanks again, and we'll go ahead and get started. I did want to provide a little bit of information about EDD while we have your attention. Make sure that you do understand that we have our regional representatives that are represented in these 6 regions of the state. You can see their contact information, and hopefully everyone is familiar with these representatives. But if you're not, reach out to them. And along this process, as you're working with economic development, whether it's through SSBCI or other programs, don't ever hesitate to reach out to these folks and find out more information and figure out how we can best serve you and your business and your community. Also, I want to remind folks that we do have the weekly wrap-ups that we put out every Monday, and that's a way that we share business resources, articles, community opportunities, and news. And maybe you saw the notice for this webinar on our weekly wrap-up in that email. If you don't get them, you can go to our website and scroll to the bottom of the page, and you can sign up for that newsletter. As well, if you're not able to access your email, we do stream a recap of the wrap-up via YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook every Monday at 12. And so you can gain information that way. And if you have any questions about recovery resources, EDD resources, and you don't know where to turn, you can contact Jennifer Myers, who is our statewide disaster recovery coordinator, and she facilitates those live streams every Monday and helps to edit and put together those wrap-ups. So don't hesitate, and you can reach out to Jennifer and get connected with EDD that way. So let's jump right in. SSBCI, the State Small Business Credit Initiative. This is version 2.0, and the first version we participated in, which started, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, started in 2011, is that right? And ended in 2015, about?
Yeah, authorized in 2010 and wrapped up in 2017.
In 2017, thank you. And so this is version 2.0. It's 6 times larger than the first version. And overall, for the entire country, there's an allocation from Congress for $10 billion. And this money is really focused on getting money out into the economy and into markets to whether it's specifically focused on recovery efforts because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and addressing some of the barriers that are out there in the market that exist for small business owners to access credit. So within SSBCI, states are able to create credit and enhancement programs. There is also a technical assistance component to that enables a continuum of services or business development that allows that money to go toward small businesses. This round, SSBCI 2, is over a 10-year performance period. So this is an increase compared to version 1. And New Mexico has an allocation of $74 million. And Treasury has broken out some key areas that they are focused on. So you can see that there's a breakout here. VSB stands for very small business. And this money is incentivized to go toward businesses that have less than 10 employees. And then also we put SED, socially economically disadvantaged companies, and that allocation or that bucket is about $11 million in addition to the main allocation of 52. So you get to around $74 million. There's another allocation of $8 million as well. Here you can see that these allocations are in alignment with SSBCI and US Treasury's mission to get this money out to markets, to businesses that have experienced barriers in accessing capital, very small businesses and socially economically disadvantaged businesses. And before we move on to define that socially economically disadvantaged business, it is looking at groups or populations that have been affected negatively, socially or economically. And so that is looking at gender, racial status, ethnicity status, geographic location, veteran, etc. If a business can self-certify that they have been socially and economically disadvantaged, and there is a definition that we can help point toward as well. Anything that you want to add here, Eric, as I'm just providing a really high overview?
No, it's great. Please continue.
Okay. So obviously this presentation is focused on the venture capital program aspect. EDD in the state of New Mexico has identified that there is a desire to invest in venture capital programs. And so looking at the SSBCI rules and parameters that are out there, we threw up the actual definition that SSBCI has provided, and jurisdictions is defined by states or other municipalities or tribal governments that have been approved through US Treasury's program. They can set up public-private partnerships for equity investing or invest in venture capital funds. These investments are focused on providing capital to underserved startups and democratizing venture capital across geography and to diverse founders. Again, highlighting those priorities that are a part of the program, promoting equity, catalyzing private investments, and fueling economic growth and good jobs. Hopefully all that are on this call have had a chance to review the SSBCI parameters and the program guidelines. Those can be found on this website. Treasury has done a great job at providing FAQs, information sessions, etc. And so you can go and get into the details of this program as well. Hopefully folks know this too, but all of the data, all of the best practices, all of the challenges from SSBCI version 1 are available on US Treasury's website. So you can go there and really see what states deployed and what worked. And it's a great way to have a starting point based on experience from the first session. So let's get into our RFI. John, do you want to add anything before we get into the RFI portion?
No, I think you're doing great, Joanna. And just to let everyone know, we're going to be answering some questions at the end. So if you had questions about what we've covered so far, we are going to be doing questions and answers at the end of this.
Great, thank you. So the purpose of us putting out this RFI is to get preliminary information on your ideas and on your proposals that you are seeking SSBCI funding. This RFI is not the official process that we will use to determine an approval. However, this is an opportunity for us to gather ideas to inform our efforts as we further craft out our approach. But it's also to get your foot in the door and start that conversation with us, letting us know that you're interested, gathering the necessary important information that we'll need to make a decision moving forward. And I will share the timeline that will provide a picture of our steps and understanding the process of when we could expect to begin funding our approved partners in this program. So the areas of focus that we are looking at supporting, again, this is going back, I'm repeating it a couple of times, but it's a very important part of this program and EDD's mission, is to strengthen New Mexico's economy by providing equity to funds and investment programs, especially those who promote access to capital for, and again, this is going back to those socially economically disadvantaged businesses, very small businesses that have less than 10 employees, businesses located in an underserved area, and underserved is defined by Treasury, and there we can provide a link that you can go to the US Census tracts and figure out if a particular location is considered underserved. And then also we have a preference on supporting businesses that are within the targeted 9 industries that EDD supports, as well as the New Mexico Governor's Administration. So repeating those for folks so we're all on the same page. Aerospace, biosciences, cybersecurity, film and TV, global trade, intelligent manufacturing, outdoor rec, sustainable and green energy, and sustainable and value-added ag. And if you need more information about these targeted industries, you can find those on our website. This is in the RFI, but this is starting to paint a picture of what EDD is interested in looking at. So EDD is looking at funding multiple VC equity funds that support a variety of approaches. And we've kind of just thrown these out there. They are on the RFP. And I think the important thing to note here is that EDD is interested in reviewing proposals that are providing a creative, innovative approach of how do we support economic growth and stability here while meeting gaps that exist within the market. And so there is an approach, and I just threw this up here, but there is an approach that we're looking at, or a strategy that we'd like to see funding going to support VC and equity funds that are focused on early growth stage as well as Series A. And then also there's a focus on supporting funds that are looking to fund companies that provide social and community impact, what sometimes you hear as ESG focused funds, environmental, societal, and governance focused funds. And so when you know that there's kind of this 2-bucket strategy that EDD is looking to support, then that's where you can kind of plug in these components that we're really focused on. So how do we increase the deal flow to new technologies and startups? How do we prime the pump for future investments and facilitate innovation? How do we expand access to capital, as well as other wraparound technical assistance services like legal, accounting, development? How do we target companies that are beyond seed stage They are later early growth and looking for that Series A funding or that next step funding. How do we collaborate and work with stakeholders to leverage the investment and opportunity that we have in front of us right now? And again, how do we support an innovative equity model, a creative equity model, looking at exciting potential ways like revenue sharing as a way to validate a company or support a company? And then how do we respond to and support the needs of New Mexico business owners? This list is not exhaustive. This is a kind of a broad paintbrush swoop of trying to capture some of the things that we are focused on. If you have a fund that broadly fits one of these areas, we of course would be interested in reading about it, but as well, if it's not on the list, we'd still be open to reviewing it. John, anything you want to add here?
Yeah, I was just going to say, again, as Joanna, you mentioned a little bit ago, we have these ideas of how this program would look, and these are the guidelines that we figured out based on that. But we're really also looking for ideas from all of you. So if you feel like we're missing something, please feel free to let us know that. This is the first time we've done something quite like this. And so we're very open to ideas from people who do this on a regular basis, people who have experience supporting these types of companies, doing this sort of investment. So please reach out to us. Let us know if you have any thoughts about where we might be missing the boat on something.
Great, thank you so much, John. And I see a couple of questions coming in, so please keep those coming as you think up questions. Highlighting requirements as per SSBCI program and US Treasury, there is a requirement that investments have at least a one-to-one match from a private capital source at the venture capital fund level. And it's really important to hone in on this because we are funding funds. We would expect that fund to have identified their capital, their additional capital sources that are going into that fund to at least, again, there's a one-to-one match with the state allocation for New Mexico. Overall, across the 10-year period, we would want to see, and this is, again, it's not just us, but US Treasury, a 10-to-1 ratio of private capital leverage to federal dollars over that performance period. So this is speaking to additional private capital that is raised over that 10-year period. And if you want to understand exactly the definition that SSBCI provides in their parameters, you can go to their FAQs, and here's the citation, and you can find that fund investment program. And I think, I see Deborah had a question, but I thought that I mentioned that there is a requirement that SSBCI does define a VC fund, and they use the definition by SEC. And we can find the link to that and put it in the chat too, when we say VC/equity. So here's the tentative timeline. Initial EDD proposal review within 30 days of that closing date that the proposals are due to EDD. We are planning to hire an investment manager, and they should hopefully be on board within 60 days. We are going to be forming an SSBCI investment review committee, and this committee will be into place to provide an additional layer of oversight, due diligence, and recommendations for the department. This will be made up of a robust group that has experience, expertise in investment, VC investment. It's very important to note that the members of this committee cannot have any type of conflict of interest. So this will be set up within 60 days. The technical assistance application, I didn't mention this, but Treasury is opening up a technical assistance application that will be due early to mid-March. And hopefully within 14 days of this information session, we'll have another similar RFI that is a call for interest for technical assistance programs that are providing, again, that continuum of services that it's focused on legal, accounting, financial services, et cetera. And so we'll put that out very soon. And you can find that information on the same page that we posted this RFR on, and I'll put that on there on the chat. Formal call for proposals, additional information that would happen within 75 days. And that's the continuation of this process that enables us to gather more information and go through the steps of that formal call. The SSBCI Investment Review Committee should evaluate and review afterward. And then we will provide EDD, our cabinet secretary, with approval, or then we'll get the approval, and then we'll provide the approval notifications. And hopefully within 6 months of that approval would be making funding actions. And sorry, I have a skylight that's right behind me, so my camera gets a little funky at this time of day, so apologies. And John, just jump in anytime if you want to add anything.
Sure, and I was just going to add, so yeah, as Joanna mentioned, we're hoping that after we make the awards, that the awardees would have everything in place within 6 months, that we could then provide them with that funding. But we recognize that there might be a lot to set up, and so we could potentially provide extensions as long as we see that significant progress is being made towards reaching the goals of having everything in place to be able to receive that funding.
Great point.
So that means all of the operational stuff in place, having the funds that would be leveraged in place, all of that sort of stuff.
Great, thank you so much, John. And I know you have to jump off soon, so are you still having to jump off at 11?
I'm still good for now.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to jump off for a committee hearing, but it hasn't started yet, and they're not known for starting on time, so I'll stay on as long as I can.
All right, wonderful. So we wanted to provide a little bit of an opportunity to go over the RFI that is current. And this is a repeat of what is in the RFI, but we have broken down the RFI in several components. The first one is focused on the program design. What are you proposing? So of course, we're asking for a description of the fund. What's the total size of your fund or program that you're seeking from SSBCI? Also, that really important component of giving us insight into your proposed match or your anticipated match of where you are able to raise funding from. The anticipated profile investments, including the business stages, investment vehicles, a typical deal size, number of investments per year, the desired distribution of SSBCI funds, the strategy to deploy capital effectively so tranches 2 and 3 won't be delayed. And I didn't mention this point, but over that 10-year period, New Mexico and EDD are not able to release that second or a second tranche until 80% of the funding in the first tranche is utilized and used. And then advisory services. Give us some insight into services that directly or indirectly would be provided with your program. Program leverage. This is the second component. why SSBCI funds are critical to the success of your program, how SSBCI funds will be used to immediately leverage or cause at least one-to-one in private capital in each deal, how these investments will encourage follow-on funding, how is your program going to reach those socially and economically disadvantaged business owners, and how will your program enhance the VC ecosystem in New Mexico? And again, we really want to focus on that component of what is the gap in the ecosystem that you are solving or helping to address. The third component are core qualifications, experience of the management team, relevant investment history or returns of previous funds, experience in investing public funds alongside private equity, and reporting to government agencies. And then we're wrapping up. These are other things that you might add, but well, this one is required a brief description of how your fund will comply with SSBCI's conflict of interest policies and safeguards to put in place to ensure compliance, optional, brief bio of your partners, and then background or any additional information you believe is relevant. And we wanted to wrap up by providing some insight into what we are focused on, seeing at least a mention or seeing how these components relate to your program proposal. So we did release the State Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy in the fall of 2021, and you can find that plan here. So in it lies strategies and action recommendations for diversifying the economy and building out those 9 targeted sectors that we mentioned. As well, we've identified 5 additional challenges that New Mexico's economy faces and strategies and action items that we're focused on supporting to diversify the economy and strengthen the economy. So it would be great to see some alignment with our state plan. As well, we wanted to let you all know, if you weren't aware, that we do have the Sustainable Economy Task Force and Advisory Council that was put in place in the last legislative session to strengthen and diversify the economy. And you can read more about it on our website, but this is a task force that we do manage. And Senate Bill 112 from the last legislative session provides some interesting overlap in mission with our state plan, as well as the mission of this group. We do have a Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Coordinator, Shawnee Harvey, who here's her contact, and you can stay in touch with this effort and her work if it can be helpful in informing your proposal design. And then as well, technical assistance, wraparound services, really wanting to see a continuum of services, that there's business development and they're going along the performance period. Of course, to wrap up, you can reach out to me. Here's my phone number, call, text, email, anytime, any questions, and we'll get you information as you need it. So this is an open process. Again, feel free to reach out. So we will go ahead and start answering questions unless you have anything else to add, John. Oh gosh, my camera is a mess.
No, that sounds great. Let's
off actually.
Let's go to questions and answers.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm going to take some of the questions that were submitted via the registration, and I'm just going to go down the list. One of the questions that a repeated question that we got were from businesses, and they were wondering how they can be involved in this process. How can they access these funds? And I want to remind folks that we did put, I'm going to bring it back up here, the regional rep contacts. And this is a great way to receive services, get connected to resources in your region for businesses, for communities. reminding folks as well, this RFP or this RFI is for VC funds, investment organizations that can meet that SEC definition of a VC fund. And hopefully once these funds are established, then we would have information about how you could reach out to them and receive funding if it's applicable. So this question is probably for you, John. What are the types of investment outcomes that the state would like to see accomplished through the VC program?
Sure. So we're going to be focusing, primarily on what is the economic impact. What are the jobs being created, and not just any jobs. We want to make sure that they're high quality jobs. So, we'll be looking at, what are the wages of those positions, and then depending on where in the state those jobs are being created, how do the wages of those positions compare to the average wages of that county? And then also looking at what additional investment is being brought in by that investment. The company that's receiving the investment, what additional capital are they bringing in? But then beyond that, we're also looking at how does this help the state make progress to helping steady businesses? How does this help historically disadvantaged communities and peoples?
Thank you, John. We had a question from Connor and asking about the relationship with this program and the potential House Bill 104 or 104 that is in session right now that involves setting up a VC fund housed under New Mexico Finance Authority. So how might this correlate with it or coordinate?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're very well aware of House Bill 104. That proposal came out after the executive budget recommendation already came out, so that wasn't budgeted in our official budget request. So there's officially at this point no position one way or the other on it, but we're certainly talking about the idea of that program a lot. And if that does pass and get enacted into law, we will be coordinating very well with NMFA. These will be two distinct programs. They're not going to be run together, but we will coordinate to make sure that there isn't conflict or overlap between them.
Great, thank you. And this question is from Alice on, are nonprofit impact funds eligible? And this might be a question for you, Eric. And I think it's going back again to that definition of VC funds of what is eligible and not.
Sure, I can step into this. So it certainly is possible for a nonprofit entity to manage a fund that meets the SEC definition. So that's where the focus should be for the nonprofit kind of entity asking this question, is when they structure the fund vehicle itself. Does it meet the definition that you'll provide a link to over the SEC? There are examples around the country of nonprofit organizations being that kind of general partner, the GP, if you will, of an SEC defined venture fund. So nonprofits in no way would be disqualified from this. It's more about looking at the fund structure and making sure it fits what is expected from New Mexico.
Great, thank you so much. We actually had a few questions on that. And let's see, so again, I'm just going through the questions that were provided in the registration. We had a few questions that revolve around eligibility for cannabis companies. And I'll let you take that, Eric. We were kind of chatting about this before the session.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think some states are asking about this, or some parties in states. And so my understanding is that the field still has illegal status at the federal level. And so it is not going to be an allowable kind of investee from the SSBCI perspective at this time. I don't know if something changes with federal legislation, if then this could be revisited. But my understanding would be, as of now, it would not be an allowable investment from SSBCI.
Great, thank you. And again, feel free to type questions into the questions box. And I think that sums up the questions that were submitted prior. And now I'm just going to go to the questions in the questions box. So we have a question, and I'll pitch this to you, John. Maybe we can tag team on this one. But Eric is asking, many of the small businesses that his organization works aren't quote unquote high growth and probably not good candidates for typical VC. What's the range of return you might expect for a competitive, successful application?
That is a really good question. And again, that's one of the benefits of this program, is that we don't have to just look at returns. I think that's also where we would love input from the applicants, to this RFI, to say, okay, here's the range of returns we propose, and then perhaps come up with a separate rate of returns if there are additional benefits being provided. If it's not a high growth business, but if it's in an area of the state that has really struggled to have businesses start and succeed, then that's definitely something we want to take a look at. So we're very open to talking with all of you about how that would be structured. If you have an idea for how that would work, guidelines that we could put in place for that, please put that into your response to the RFI.
Thank you, John, and thanks, Eric, for the question. I think it's getting to another question that we have by Carlos and a few others about that. How do small businesses that aren't a tech-based startup eligible for, or what chances do they have for receiving funding? And I do think it's an opportunity to repeat again that EDD is focused on two strategies to see that capital being deployed. And so there is a desire to support funds that are looking at companies that are providing a social impact, that they are providing some type of benefit to society, and recognizing that to John's point, that those returns aren't necessarily clear cut, but knowing that those returns aren't as high as a later stage growth fund or a Series A fund, and the private capital leverage is a lesser amount, but there is that focus to seed money going to very small businesses and businesses that don't typically fall into that quote unquote VC perfect kind of box. And Carlos has a question about, is there an overlap between the RFI in New Mexico and the technical assistance application? So again, repeating, we will put out another RFI very soon within the next 2 weeks that will ask a lot of the same organizations that are applying for proposals on how they would utilize SSBCI funds to create technical assistance programs. We do call out in our current RFI that we would like to see mention and support of programs and services that would be provided to companies, to see a continual business development and support in addition to investment funding. And Max is asking about summarizing the 5 challenges that we identify in our state comprehensive economic development plan. John, help me out here. I'll put the link in the chat. That is, I think it's eddstateplan.com, and you can really clearly see those challenges. But one of them, I'm just thinking out loud, one of them is modernize EDD's ecosystem. One of them is to support equity by supporting socially and economically disadvantaged business owners, supporting community development, rural development, and I will put that in the chat right now.
Perfect. And yeah, if anyone wants to go to our main website, we also have a link on our front page where you can take a look at the plan. And that our main website address is edd.newmexico.gov. And we have on there both the plan itself, which is over 400 pages, but we also have a summary that's about 20 pages where you can get a quick idea of what the point of it is, what it's focusing on, where we're trying to go.
Great, thank you so much, John. So Dan is asking if the investment manager has been identified. And Dan, that process is just beginning, and we're hopeful that that person is put on place soon, within 60 days. And I don't know if you can see the questions, John. I'm just going through these really quickly. Thanks all for being patient.
I can't see them on my end now.
All right. These are some great questions, and I'm seeing a lot of familiar names, so it's great to see everyone. Juhi is asking, will there be other RFIs being released for capital access and or credit enhancement programs? And Juhi, thanks for bringing up that question. I didn't mention that EDD and New Mexico are deploying funds into this direct fund investment model and looking to invest in multiple VC funds. However, we still will be investing, or we will be investing money into our current collateral assistance program, which is defined as a credit enhancement program. And that enables us to support companies that have a shortfall in collateral and provide collateral for lenders in order for them to mitigate their risk and close a loan and get money out into the market that way. I think it would be really interesting to see some of the proposals that come back from this RFI process. If there are additional ideas of how to enhance the credit enhancement programs, I think we would be open to reviewing it and discussing it. And John, please jump in too if you have a different opinion.
No, that sounds great.
Okay, well, I think, so here's another question from Alice. Alice, are the private sector dollars, that one-to-one match, required to be invested in New Mexico? This is an interesting question. Eric, do you have any sense? I don't think Treasury has, does Treasury have parameters on that private sector capital of where that match is being invested in?
Right. So there is a geographic component to SSBCI in this 2.0 iteration. And so the way that it works is that each state has a 10% allowance of their total funding allocation that could go out of state. And the reason why this is important to the venture capital programs is when a state does move forward with a fund investment strategy, where the state is committing capital into a fund alongside private investment, the way that venture capital funds often work is they invest regionally, if not nationally. And so there could be a way that New Mexico supports an investment fund, a venture capital fund that has private capital in it. It's all commingled. It's pari passu, so the SSBCI capital is on the same terms as the private financing in the fund. If some of that capital found its way to, Arizona or Colorado or Utah or wherever, so long as it is traced and New Mexico knows that they did not go above 10% of their total allocation, then that would be allowed. So you just need to kind of keep track of all that and make sure there's an understanding with the selected fund managers about how that works, and that each and every transaction does have to go through the required certifications and reporting of SSBCI. but there is a geographic allowance up to 10%.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And let's see, we've got another question from Christopher. How many funds are you seeking to support with New Mexico's allocation? And we are seeking to support no less than 3 and potentially no more than 10. At least that's what we put in our U.S. Treasury application that was submitted on Friday to help kind of frame the progress of this program and how you're thinking about it.
Yeah, we realized that there might be very different but equally valuable ways for different organizations to try to target these investments. And so we didn't want to just assume that we would put all of the funding into one or two. We don't want it to become unmanageable where we're having to interact with 20 or 40 different funds and fund managers, but somewhere in the 3 to 10 range we figured would give us that flexibility so that we could potentially target different regions of the state, different different populations, different aspects of peoples and communities being historically underserved, different industries. So we're really leaving it very open to the idea of having a number of these organizations that we would work with.
Thanks, John. And I see a question from Paul, and I think it's a good question to end on. If we will be sending out the deck and questions/answers after this meeting, and yes to both of those questions. So we'll send out the deck, we'll send out the recording, and as well, I see a couple of questions that we didn't have a chance to get to, but we will answer these as well as the questions that were asked. I'll go ahead and put a written answer in there, and we will send this out to folks. And I'll go ahead and wrap up. I know Deputy Clark has to jump off and attend legislative session. And again, thank you so much to Eric for your time, and just want to repeat how helpful U.S. Treasury's team has been, and really appreciate it, and all the feedback and guidance that we've gotten from their team. So thank you so much, Eric, for your time. And thank you, John, for your time.
Thank you so much, Joanna. I echo your thanks to Eric, and thanks to all of you for being on here. And again, just want to reiterate that if you feel like we're missing the boat on something, and if there's a way we could design this that you think would be more effective, please reach out to us. We really want to rely on your expertise.
Agreed. Thank you so much. Take care.